When you look at this picture of Jaden Smith in a skirt, leggings, topless, with a flower in his hair, you see a boy who has no idea of what it means to be a man. Moreover, you see a boy who has no idea that he's being exploited. You see, Jaden Smith is only 17 years old, and under the law, a boy like Jaden Smith would be considered a minor. And to present a black boy like this is clearly a form of exploitation. I look at this image and I see a young man who has no idea how he is being taken advantage of. Now, I'm going to give you some historical context on exploitation in black and white. Now, in 1995, Calvin Klein ran some ads featuring white teenagers in sexually suggestive poses. And he also ran some ads with children in their underwear. And these ads were considered child pornography by many. And it was so controversial that the FBI was called in to investigate. Eventually, Calvin Klein was forced to pull these ads featuring these white children in these sexually suggestive poses off billboards and buses and magazines. They were forced to pull these ads. Meanwhile, we look at this picture of Jaden Smith, and I see the same kind of exploitation. Unfortunately, we get no outrage from your African American community like there was in the white community when these white children were being presented in this sexually suggestive way by Calvin Klein. No, we get nothing but silence from many in the African American community regarding how this young boy is being exploited by the media. I mean, this is something that should be protested. The way this boy has being, degraded and disrespected. Yes, yes, Jaden Smith was paid $10 million, but $10 million is not going to get this boy's dignity back, and it's not going to get his self-image back. Even worse, this this type of ad is used as a gateway by perverts to present further exploitative images of African Americans. This is why we need to fight this because they use one image to open a gateway to bring more perversion and more deviancy into the African American community. And the reason why they want to do this is because they want to be able to say that the black man is a savage. And this type of image is what is used as a gateway towards that. And this is the sad part about African Americans. I haven't seen African Americans this weak in my life. I mean, I look at the historical context of this, and black people are at their weakest. This isn't something that black people need to be galvanized and fighting against. Yet we have African Americans just justifying this and saying, "Oh, this is okay. This is fine," and "Oh, it's his life." No, this is not his life. This is a 17-year-old boy who has no understanding of the forces around him, of the people around him, of and what this means, what message is being presented here. The message presented in this image says that, a black man is weak, a black man can be broken down, a black man can be made to submit, and a black boy, really a black boy, can be presented, and turned into a female and presented and made to act in a feminine and submissive way. And in some ways, it's meant to, titillate perverted men with deviant ideas regarding black boys. And that's another reason why black people need to galvanize and organize boycotts against Louis Vuitton and all these people trying to present these effeminized images of African American men because this is a gateway. You have to understand how the media works. I understand how the media works. They use images like this as a gateway towards pushing the envelope and pushing dysfunctional ideas inside of the African American community. And what people who are creating images like this want to do is they want to push perverted agendas like pedophilia and other, deviant acts and make them the social norm. And they use the black community as a gateway towards doing these types of things. These people in Madison Avenue advertise Hollywood movie studios. They use young men like Jaden Smith as a gateway towards pushing their perverted agendas, into mainstream society. And they use the black community as a gateway towards that because if everybody sees the black male, presented this way, some of them think that, oh, this is cool. If the black guy is doing this, then it'll be normal. And then this is not normal. This is twisted. And you have to understand the agenda presented by this. And the whole thing is that this is exploitation meant to dehumanize people. And what I find most disturbing, again, is this indifference among African Americans regarding images like this and how they can just say, oh, he's got money, but what about this man's intangibles? What about his dignity and his self-respect? I find it really disturbing that, you know, every other man out here would be non-black would look at this same image and see exploitation. I mean, when I compare this image to what happened in the Abu Ghraib prison in 2004, I see the exact same sort of, degradation, dehumanization, and humiliation, because what American soldiers did to those Iraqi prisoners, that's what these Hollywood people are doing to Jaden Smith. Um, Back then, there was a whole lot of outcry regarding the degradation of those Iraqi prisoners. People saw those men as having human rights, and the way they were mistreated in that prison was considered egregious to the world. The way those men were tortured, humiliated. One man was chained to a bed, and they put panties on his face. And in the Middle Eastern culture, putting feminine garments on a man is the ultimate form of humiliation. So they had basically, took this man's manhood, and the entire world, when they saw that, became outraged at this degradation of Iraqi men. And those Iraqi men and those Middle Eastern men, they had an outcry. They stood up like men and said, look, you're not going to disrespect us like that. You're not going to degrade us like that. This is a violation of our human rights. But in your African American Negro community, you hear nothing but silence, and that's really, really disturbing. That there is nothing but silence in your Afro American Negro community. I mean, you would think this would be the cause everybody would be getting behind. You would think that, your Al Sharpton would be coming to call this out. Your Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam would be calling this out. You think all these black fraternities and sororities would be calling this out. And you think every black man and woman would be calling this out and holding these people accountable and making a campaign to, stand up against this sort of degradation of a child, because this is clearly a form of child abuse. I mean, if those kids in that Calvin Klein ad could be considered exploited, you can also consider this exploitation as well. And this is the type of thing that everybody needs to galvanize and stand up against, because if you don't give pushback for this, the deviants will continue to push their agenda further and further into society. This is not, about um, celebrities. This is what they do. They use a celebrity as a gateway to push their deviant agenda in society and promote, these dysfunctional and sick ideas. And really, black people have to start pushing back, because they use black people as a way to get as a gateway to bring this stuff in, because they know if they use the white child and put him in the same image, there would be some pushback and some resistance. But they know, because many of these Negroes are cowardly and weak and will not, stand for anything, they can use you as the gateway to bring things in. And this is why you can't give, images like this a pass. The stuff like this needs to be stood up to, and it needs to be, marched against, protested against, boycotted against, and it really needs, people to stand up against it, because you can't have, this type of image, promoted as a norm in America, because this type of image, promotes the idea that black men, are weak, black men are, pathetic, black men can be broken down, and black men can be placed in an unnatural position in God's order. And that's really what's really sick about this, because you're saying that a black man cannot be a man, that a black man is not a leader. And it's for those of us who know better, to speak out against, images like this and stand up against them, because no, a lot of young people don't understand what exploitation is. They don't understand that people who exploit people take advantage of their naivete and their lack of understanding regarding things, and they take advantage of their understanding of the power of image. I mean, you have to really understand what media is to understand what this one picture, the thousand words that this picture is telling, and the thousand words that this picture is telling is that we can do whatever we want to a black boy, and the sad part is that the black adults, like your Jada Pinkett's and your Will Smiths, won't say a single word about it. That they're so weak that they'll just give this a pass, and that the black community is so weak that they'll give it a pass, and that anything that they want to do to people, they can pretty much do. And it starts with one image, but that thousand words, writes an essay that tells the world that the disrespect of black people is perfectly fine. If it wasn't fine for those white kids in the Calvin Klein ad, and if it wasn't fine for the Iraqi prisoners in Abu Ghraib, then it shouldn't be fine for black people to accept.